A five-time Olympian and the winner of a silver medal on the track at the 1984 Games in Los Angeles, Charmaine Crooks is one of Canada's best-known female athletes. She was the first in this country to run the 800 in under 2 minutes. Since retiring from active competition, Crooks has been involved in the Olympics at many levels, including serving as an elected official of the International Olympic Committee. The Standard's Shannon Nelson sat down with Charmaine Crooks recently to talk about the life in the fast lane.
Charmaine Crooks is one of the fastest and hardest working women I know, and because of that, she's had some wonderful experiences. Imagine carrying the Olympic flag for your country during opening ceremonies, or standing on a podium with teammates getting an Olympic medal. You'd think she's led a charmed life, and maybe she has. Hey, pal.
Hey, Shani, how are you?
I'm great. What about the wear and tear on your body? Have you experienced that? Are you still pretty good? Like injuries, that kind of thing, because it's pretty intense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I had a lot of injuries throughout my whole career, but I was very fortunate that towards the end of my career, when most of the injuries come, when you're a little older, you're pushing it more. I was running a longer distance, so I went from 400 to 800. I was very fortunate to have a coach who was a doctor, Dr. Doug Clement, who was also a great Olympic athlete himself. So I was really able to really watch my body and listen to my body. So if you felt as if you were taxing it too much, you just slowed down, because one day you're going to need your body for the rest of your life, and to really try to abuse it too much for those compact 20 years or so of competition, it can really have some negative benefits later on.
Yeah.
So I still try to listen to my body. If I feel those aches and pains, I think in the mid-40s everyone's going to feel something, you know. So it's just trying to listen to my body and not overdo it too much. But physical activity is also a maintenance tool, isn't it, to try to ward off certain injuries. So just a core sense of strength is really important, because I know the aches and pains, they're only going to get worse as we get older. So, you know, you might as well do a little bit to ward that off.
I don't even have any major injuries, and I got aches and pains everywhere. I think it's just because I'm getting old. All right. You come from humble beginnings.
Yes, absolutely.
One of 8 kids.
9, actually.
9?
Yes, 9.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
And immigrated from Jamaica when you were how old?
I was 4.5 years old when I came from Jamaica to Canada, and we lived on when my father was working for the bauxite company down there, and we lived on a big farm. And then my parents, they kind of took off with some of my older sisters to kind of settle in the Toronto area, and then I came up after, and then my other 2 brothers came up, you know, so we all kind of came in shifts. You can't afford to put 9 kids on the same airplane, right? Actually, my last brother was born in Toronto. So I think it was a real interesting time for my family as new immigrants coming to Canada and having to experience so much of Canadian culture. And we ended up living in the real Italian neighborhood, Portuguese people. So there were all these other immigrants there. So it was very easy to connect with that same experience coming to a new country and adjusting to that in school as well. You know, there were some really tough times, and people picking up on your accent or the way you dress.
Did you have the Jamaican accent, Mom?
Yeah, Mom, we had a Jamaican accent. Yeah, taxi. I still have it. I can put on that lingo anytime, because, you know, we've gone back and forth throughout the years. But just coming as immigrants, it was a really unique experience in the sort of late 60s, early 70s for a lot of us. It still is. It's a different climate now. There's probably more services available for immigrants in Canada, but there's always that adjustment.
Yeah.
And so for us, our parents saw sport as a connector. So we're all encouraged to play team sports, and that's why I guess I ended up in track and field, because you got to meet a lot of new kids, got to play with kids, and you got to, I guess, experience Canada in a different kind of way by playing floor hockey or running or trying to ski or sliding down hills and getting used to the snow, because there was none in Jamaica.
No. So tell me this, was religion a part of your upbringing?
Absolutely, yeah. We were brought up Catholic. You know, you got 9 kids. We were brought up Catholic, and it was a very important part of our family.
Yeah.
Church on Sunday at St. Mary's School. You knew that at the church, you knew that the Crooks family were always in the front row. All 9 of us proper, couldn't move. My dad was a very powerful force in the family. So, but church on Sunday was a very important thing for us, and so, you know, going through communion and confirmation and all that with all the Italian kids in our neighborhood, it was very important, and so much so that one of my older sisters was a nun.
Oh.
So she was a nun. She's now a school teacher in the Catholic school system in Toronto, and the kids love her.
Yeah.
I walk through Toronto, they say, "Aren't you Charmaine? I love your sister. She was my teacher." So, I mean, people like just talk to me so they can say how great a teacher my sister is. So it's great.
So what about now? Do you still practice?
You know what? Spirituality, particularly as an athlete, there was probably no race that I didn't go in when I said, "God, please help me handle these Russians and Germans and everything else." So really, just really getting into your zone for a lot of athletes was also about connecting with their own spirituality. And it's not unusual to go to any sport competition and people just meditating. I mean, they could be meditating maybe on just their focus, what they have to do and where they have to hit those certain points. And I did that same thing. But because I grew up in a really religious, strict Catholic family, it was always important for us to say, "God, please help me." You know? So we always did that. And for a lot of my races, I would cross myself. That's just a natural thing that I always did. I don't go to church as much, anymore because of my time and everything else. But, it's really important that connection has always been a very important part of my life. Absolutely.
In the time since you've done so much, you've worked with the IOC. That was a big honor as well.
Yeah.
You've worked on so many committees. You've worked to advocate for athletes. I know this is a tough question, but if I was to ask you what you've done in the time since that makes you most proud, because you've had so many proud moments, what would it be, just in the last 10 years since you've been retired?
I think the proudest thing was, first of all, being one of the few athletes to have been the first who were elected as voting members of the International Olympic Committee. Here's an organization that has been around for 100 years that continues to remain relevant. But it was probably into that, not even at the 100-year mark, when athletes were elected by their peers to become voting members. And when you become a voting member of the International Olympic Committee, it gives you the foyer and it opens up the door for you to be able to make some changes and vote on some very important issues that affect other athletes who are coming up. So I think some of the highlights of that whole experience was being one of the founding members of the IOC, International Olympic Committee's Ethics Commission.
Right.
And when we went through that big scandal and all the issues that happened there, it was unbelievable to have a chance to work with some amazing world leaders to be able to develop a code of ethics that still guides the International Olympic Committee today in terms of how they address issues, how they engage people in the bid process, because the rings are so valuable to an athlete's experience to be able to express themselves through sport in this forum where most of the world is watching for a very concentrated period of time. So it's worth saving, it's worth preserving, and to have been a part of the first ethics committee, the 8 of us who reviewed some issues, who helped put in some very high standards to make the organization more accountable, is perhaps something that I am most proud of. It's a legacy that keeps building now.
You're not going to believe this, but we're out of time.
Oh, gosh.
Well, like I say, you've got this resume. You've done so many wonderful things, Charmaine, and I wish we had time to cover them all, but it's been great catching up with you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
And I know we'll see a lot more of you in the future.
Thanks, Shannon.
Charmaine Crooks is currently a member of the Vancouver Organizing Committee's Board of Directors, working on behalf of the Vancouver 2010 Olympic Games. I'll be right back.